Good afternoon, everyone. It's Wednesday, the 12th of February. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon here on the Pacific Coast, and it's sunny and cold. How are you doing, Vishanti?
It is not sunny here. It is rainy in Southern California, and it's cold. But I
Wow,
have
rainy
two
and cold.
kittens curled up on my lap, so I am blessed. We're
Objectively,
fostering for a little while, so yeah.
that's awesome because objectively, and we were talking about this off air, but objectively, there is nothing cuter on earth than kittens. Nothing at all. I think we can all 100% agree about that.
Baby sea otters are
Everyone,
also freaking
I
adorable.
I suppose that's true. I have less experience with baby sea otters. Welcome everyone to an afternoon live stream. My name is Kip Davis. I'm a what am I? I'm a Hebrew Bible scholar and a specialist in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I like to counter bad scholarship, bad biblical scholarship on YouTube. And here we are once again talking about just that. So thank you for coming out, everyone who has checked in. I noticed that we're streaming at the same time as the New Evangelicals, unfortunately. But you know, some of this it's hard to schedule these things. I expect I've got a few people who watch the New Evangelicals. It's good to see you, Jamie Berman and Timothy Bagley. Derek Lambert is in the house, or at least he was 5 minutes ago. Hang Fashi, one of my long-suffering patrons. Very good to see you. Cuneiform guy. Fantastic. As you guys are aware. Zach, it's good that you were able to show up. Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming out. So what we're going to do today is and this is something I actually had on the schedule probably close to a month ago, but then some of this stuff with Wes Huff and 1Q Isaiah A hit the wire, and it was sort of critical. It was sort of critical to change track a little bit and to tackle some of that 1Q Isaiah A stuff. So this actually got shelved. This got delayed. But we're going to be looking at just a little bit of Ammon Hillman's last appearance on the Danny Jones podcast. And only just to set this up, this is going to be a review for me, for a lot of people, but I don't think that review is a bad thing. We can all do with reminders. We can all do with more information, with new information, with recontextualized information concerning all sorts of things that we already know. And I expect that everyone's going to get the chance to learn some things too today. So we're going to be talking about the translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek. And we're also going to be talking a lot about infinitive absolutes today, which is pretty cool. And Vish, I'm excited. I'm always excited that you're here, but I'm really excited that it's you. It's always you, but I'm really excited about that today because if I understand correctly, you are in your first year of biblical Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this
Term.
is going to be fun. Third term. So we're gonna be looking at a bunch of Hebrew text today. And I'm going to get your help with it as a budding Hebraist. There's a house member that is hovering over my shoulder. Can you guys just give me 1 second, please?
Sure. Yeah, so these two kittens are real stinking cute, and I will make an attempt to share a photo of them with everybody while we wait, because one of my hands is trapped under these kittens. So let me try this.
Apologies. It's a busy household. Oh my God. Look at that.
Yeah.
At this point, the viewership should be absolutely skyrocketing through the roof because we're showing pictures of kittens, you guys.
Yep.
Kittens. Look at
They're
that.
on my lap currently. Yeah. So
Amazing.
please enjoy
So
the
cool.
dopamine and the serotonin.
Yes. Yes. Free dopamine and serotonin.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good. Okay, so before we dive into the material proper for today's stream, I thought I'd just provide a couple of further updates about what's going on, what's happening. First of all, I just want to publicly say a huge thank you to my channel members, my patrons, those of you who support the channel, and those of you who have already donated very generously to the fundraiser. I am well on my way to reaching my goal. I'm already working on getting my computer replacement, and then the camera will be next. But just a huge thanks to everyone. It was it's been a shit couple of months here, and this goes beyond the equipment failure situation was just kind of the tip on the iceberg of shit that has been basically my holiday season leading up to now. So just I just really appreciate it. And it's going to help to ensure that I can continue working at this, which is what I love, and importantly as well, continue uh, working on the book, which is almost done. I'm in the process of writing chapter 16 out of 17 chapters. This is the hardest chapter to write because it's my chapter on wisdom literature and pedagogy and education in ancient Israel, which are topics that I don't know nearly as well as a bunch of other topics. But I'm going to finish up with a bang because the last chapter is all about apocalypticism, which some of you might know that's my jam. That's what I'm about. So it's I expect things to get finished up here. Hopefully I might even get this knocked out by the end of the month. But I'm literally weeks away from finishing the draft. I'm pretty close to actually having pre-orders available for sale. And I'm very excited about it. So yes, thank you for your ongoing support. I'm honored. I'm kind of overwhelmed by the generosity of our community, which is phenomenal. So yes, that's first. Okay. Second, there's a couple of other things that have dropped on YouTube most recently that I thought I should also say something about. If we can grab the first one, which one is this? Yeah, so if you guys can see this, so this is, I think this was published like 3 or 4 days ago. A full interview with Wes Huff on Ruslan KD's channel. I don't really want to just be the Wes Huff response channel, but there's an awful lot of content out there recently. I just wanted to say that this is something that's on my radar. This is something that I am going to get to in the near future. But I also wanted to say that in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, something like that, I'm actually going, and I'm excited because it's my first time. I'm getting my cherry popped. I'm going to an apologetics conference. Yes, I am. I've got my tickets.
Okay.
Got my tickets. Going to an apologetics conference here in town, and both Ruslan KD and Wes Huff are going to be there. So I'm very excited about that prospect. So yes, that's happening, and I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to get some additional contact from that. Let's put this one up there. Yes, what is an apologetics conference? That's a very good question. An apologetics conference is a gathering of Christian apologists, and they sell tickets to the general public so that they can come and learn apologetics. I think that's the basic gist of it. Jimmy Berman says, don't start any fights, Kip. I promise I shall not. I'm actually a very I'm actually a very lovable person. I have it on good authority. I've been told this before, that I'm actually kind of a nice person in real life. So I don't expect that I will get into any fights. I'm going for spectacle and curiosity mostly. Also, just because Wes and I have been corresponding for a number of months, just through DMs, I thought it was a good opportunity for us to actually sit down, meet one another. So yeah, so that's that. So that's something that's coming, and maybe I'll do something, maybe I'll stream something about this particular conversation just leading up to the conference, which is in the first week of March. What's next? We've got this one. All right, so I just watched this last night. Alex O'Connor. I feel like I can say Alex O'Connor is a friend of the channel. He's promoted some of my stuff, and he and I are actually going to be having a recorded conversation in 2 weeks' time. That will be airing on his channel, all about the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm very excited about that. So yeah, I think I can call Alex O'Connor a friend of the channel. So he actually did this 2.5-hour interview with this guy. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. Daily Dose of Wisdom has like almost 900,000 subscribers. Of course, he also threw his hat into this Wes Huff, 1Q Isaiah, a ring of nonsense. And I mean, to Alex's credit, he has been like a dog on a bone with this topic of the great Isaiah scroll, of textual fidelity, of questions regarding textual criticism and Scrabble practices in early Judaism, which is fantastic. It's fan-fucking-tastic that people are talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls in these public spaces, and that people are talking about the Bible and textual criticism and source criticism and the Hebrew manuscripts. This is phenomenal, and in no small part due to Alex's constant exposure about this stuff. He's like out there just waving his arms. In large part because he's really impressed. He's really impressed by the things that he has learned regarding the Dead Sea Scrolls, regarding 1Q Isaiah A. Unfortunately, it's also created interesting reactions from within the apologetics community, including some stuff from this guy, Daily Dose of Wisdom. It's always, you can imagine, a little frustrating for someone such as myself, for specialists within the field, to listen to people, interested lay people, who don't have any idea what they're talking about, try to talk about the things that you know, that are in your wheelhouse, that are your actual areas of specialization. But so this is something as well that I will probably get to at some point. But I thought there was one thing that I wanted to just clear up today. And I hope that this does fall onto a Daily Dose of Wisdom's radar. I know that he says that he actually watched my entire 3.5-hour live stream from a couple of weeks ago, where we discussed in great depth the Great Isaiah Scroll. I'm not sure how closely he was paying attention to it, because his general response was that there was nothing really that interesting in the live stream, which is different, I think, from what I recall. I don't know. Did you think there was anything interesting in the last show, Vish?
Which last show specifically?
That was the 1Q Isaiah A stream, the big long one that we did. Do you remember that one?
I mean,
from a couple of weeks
they're
ago.
basically free graduate level courses, so I just absorb
Yeah.
all the
Okay.
information, and
So
yeah.
I don't know, there was some fire. There was definitely some fire in that video, and if you haven't watched it, I think you should. I actually made a little 7-minute summary of some of the key points. But anyways, if Daily Dose of Wisdom happens to come across this, then I really hope that he hears me on this and that he's paying attention. So maybe just play the video for about a minute and let's talk about some of the things that are said here.
If by like spelling you mean not relevant to the meaning or the significance of the finding.
Okay, so this is helpful. So to be clear, that 2600 number comes from the 32nd edition of
Pause it
Discoveries in the
just for a
Judean
second.
Desert, which is
So Alex and this guy, is his name Brandon? I think it might be Brandon. Maybe someone in the chat knows what this guy's name is. I feel like it's Brandon. If you know, please let me know in the chat. But they're talking about textual variants in 1Q Isaiah A, which have been numbered according to the official editors at over 2,600. All right, let it go.
Okay.
is the editorial publication series for the Dead Sea Scrolls, and Journal 32 is the one with the Great Isaiah Scroll in it. And
now that edition though is actually no longer used by scholars working on this today. That's actually outdated.
Sure, but this is where this.
Wait, is he talking about DJD?
Yes.
It's no longer in use. Did he just say that?
He just said that.
Okay, just making
Right.
sure I heard that.
We don't. That's all. That's all
from.
we need to listen to. That's all we need to listen to. But I hope everyone caught
Okay.
that. You can drop the video now. But seriously, I feel like something needs to be said about this. Oh my guy.
Wow.
Doc
Can you please
Romanot,
explain why that
don't
is
believe-
ridiculous.
I don't believe that this guy's name is Skippy. But if somebody does know what his name is, I'm very eager to learn it. Daily Dose of Smile and Nod, maybe. Anyways, I'm just gonna continue calling him Brandon, just because it feels right. So Brandon has just to kind of summarize. Alex noted that the number, the 2,600 textual variants in 1Q Isaiah A, is a number that has been published by the official editors of 1Q Isaiah A and 1Q Isaiah B. And that appears in the Discoveries in the Judean Desert series, volume 32. The Discoveries in the Judean Desert series is the official publication of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's 40 volumes. It's been in the process of publication from 1953, and it ended in 2011, 2010, with those two volumes. The last two volumes that were published were DJD32, which is 1Q Isaiah and 1Q Isaiah B, and the Chodayot from Qumran Cave 1 and the 4Q Chodayot manuscripts. And I believe that was DJD 40, I believe. Maybe someone else can correct me in the chat, help me out. So but that's the official series. That is the official edition. It's published by Clarendon Press in Oxford. And listen, the idea that DJD 32, which is 15 years old at this point, the idea that it's somehow outdated and no longer in use by scholars is just fucking patented nonsense. It just is. When scholars are working on this manuscript, as they do any manuscript from the Dead Sea Scrolls, this is the starting point. You're starting your study with the primary material that appears in DJD. Now, yes, scholars are employing other specialized tools, such as those on the Leon Levy Dead Sea Scrolls digital library, where you can actually view high resolution photographs of all the manuscripts. But the primary source material, the starting point, if you're ever going to write anything about either of these manuscripts, is DJD 32. That's the place where you start. Yes, there has been stuff published since 2010 about 1Q Isaiah A and 1Q Isaiah B. And yes, some of that information that has been published, and we talked a little bit about some of these things in the stream that we did about 1Q Isaiah A. But the subsequent literature that has been published since 2010 about these two manuscripts is still in conversation with that material, even though they have made some corrections and have updated some things. For example, the very good article by Drew Longaker about how the second half of 1Q Isaiah A, which represents second Isaiah, the second half of this manuscript that he is dealing with in his excellent article published in Discoveries in the Judean Desert. Sorry, no, Dead Sea Discoveries is the actual journal. He made some keen, accurate observations and made some corrections to the material in DJD. Parts of 1Q Isaiah A, several of the so-called isolated insertions that were identified by Ulrich and Flint in DJD have been provided an explanation in that article. It's expanded our knowledge base about these manuscripts. It has not rendered DJD 32 irrelevant or outdated or any such nonsense. So please stop propagating this information about what scholars are doing with DJD, because that's just garbage. I'm off my soapbox now. How we doing?
Kittens resting peacefully.
Oh, well, that's good. You probably can't hear me yelling. Otherwise they'd run away, I expect, right?
Yeah, I've got my earbuds in, so.
Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. A couple things that I think maybe I'll pull these up. Discoveries in the Judean Desert is the official 40-volume publication that serves as the editio princeps for the Dead Sea Scrolls. Manuscripts included in the series were discovered at the following arch sites: Wadi Delia, Ketif Jericho, Qumran, Wadi Murabat, Wadi Sadir, Nachal Hever, Nachal Mishmar, and Nachal Sa'alim. This is all accurate. And it is a critically important publication remains important. All right. Oh, don't worry. It's good to see you, by the way, Maya. I hope you don't get fired for watching me at work. But I don't encourage
Also,
people to
before we
watch
get
me
to
at
the
work.
next thing,
But you do what you. Oh, sorry, I meant to put that away. Okay. Yeah, let's look at the super chat. I have to, because I've got something. Okay. I'm at work and have the sound turned off, so I've literally no idea what's happening. But I really want that T-shirt. That's all. Carry on with your very important stream. What is it? Dan
yeah,
does
fit
this, right?
check.
The
Fit check.
for today. It's Sesame Street, guys. It's
But
almost
you know
always
what?
Sesame Street.
You know what pose they're referencing, right?
This one?
Yeah, why they're wearing chains and posed in that specific formation.
I am not that savvy. Vish, you'll have to remember, I'm
Okay.
an old man.
Okay, well, you just need to learn your 90s hip hop history.
Yes, see, there we go. I also don't I'm afraid I don't listen to a lot of hip hop either. And I don't know much about my hip hop history. Can you share, because this is something I don't know.
Hang on. Someone's whining. You write such aggressive titles. Well, I tell you what,
really?
I will just go ahead and make this little statement here. I think when Ammon and other people stop making absolutely incompetent, nonsensical garbage, he won't have to make such titles.
Perhaps not. Perhaps not.
So, Kip, you need to look up the photo from the 90s of Death Row Records where it's Tupac, Dre, Suge, Snoop.
Okay.
Because that's kind of what they're referencing there. So.
All right. Cool. I will look into that. I will expand my musical horizons, my music history horizons, and look into that. Thanks, Fish. So, but I love Sesame Street. What can I say?
Sesame Street.
All right. Sesame Street is cool. Okay. All right, let's I mean, it's almost been 30 minutes. There's 167 people watching. If you have questions or comments that you would like addressed, please send those via super chat. We will get to them as we go through the content. We're going to start I guess now we can just jump into this. We're going to start by looking at just a couple of clips of this this interview that that Ammon Hillman gave on the Danny Jones podcast. We're only going to look at a tiny little bit of it because honestly, I'm pretty much done with a lot of this stuff, and this is just by way of refreshment for everyone.
I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing at this. In Canada, it's called temporary confinement records. Instead of death row records. That's funny. Kudos to you.
That's good. Okay, I get it. That's funny. Very funny. I like it.
Kudos.
So,
okay. Let me know when you're ready.
I'll just answer this one before we move on. Dr. Kill, have you ever used Logos? I just saw you have a link to a Bible study software, Cross Bible. And I'm gonna probably do a couple of plugs for my friend Steven Nelson over at Cross Bible throughout the stream today. He provided some help to me with some of the images and the texts that I don't have access to for today. So thank you very much, Stephen. If you are not aware of Cross Bible, you should be. It's a phenomenal growing resource of texts and information about the textual history of the Bible, and it's free on the internet. So go check it out and go support my friend Stephen Nelson over at Cross Bible. Absolutely, my friend. you deserve it. So as to Logos, yes, I have used Logos equipment, or sorry, I got distracted. I have used Logos's platform in the past. I had actually gone down. Their headquarters is located in Bellingham, Washington, which is literally about a 35 minute drive from where I live. And a number of years ago, I went down to the HQ just to get a free copy of, I don't know, whatever their new release was back then. They sent out these invitations to like faculty members at seminaries and pastors, and I was excited. I like free things, so I went to go get my free copy, and I installed it on my computer, and it was such a goddamn pig that I used it for, I think, 6 months before I gave it away to someone else. I use Accordance, which is far and away the premier biblical studies software search engine. It can be a little bit pricey, but my God, it's worth it. I've helped to develop some of the texts on Accordance and worked on projects developing text for Accordance. So it's an excellent piece of software. That's where it's at. All right, let's watch some video.
All right.
So you're the only person on this earth, on this planet, that says that the Septuagint was an original Greek.
Am I the only one?
Is there anyone else?
Yes, because no
Yes.
one else would make such a dipshit statement that knows anything about either of those languages.
Vishanti knows where it's at, guys. Yes. Importantly, I'm glad that Danny made this statement in this interview. And yes, importantly, everyone, this is an idea that only Ammon Hillman has. And I'm talking among like scholars, like people who are trained in the field. He is the only person on earth, living or dead, and that's important because he's going to reference a dead guy who agrees with him, but no, I'm sorry, he actually does not. He is the only person, living or dead, who has ever suggested this stupid thing. And that stupid thing is that the Old Testament, the Torah, and or maybe even the entire Tanakh, was authored in Greek and then translated into Hebrew, which is idiotic, people. The reason for the very aggressive stream title thumbnail today is because this is stupid. There's just no other way to say this. This is dumb. And that's the reason why Ammon Hillman is alone on an island adrift in the ocean of scholarship at a great distance from every single one of his peers on this issue. That should be enough to discredit the viability, just the viability of this idea. You got anything more?
Shall we continue? No?
We shall continue.
Okay.
Yeah, there is.
There is?
Yes. Yeah.
There's
Who?
not.
He's dead. Does that count?
Kind of, I guess.
Okay.
Maybe you get like a half a point for that. Who is he?
He's a
John Scarborough.
no,
Not John Scarborough.
No. He's a dead longer than that. He was a scholar of Greek, a grammarian, like they used to grow. Right. These are the guys who started everything. Because the language, you can't go where the language has to lead you there. Yeah. And he said, hey, Origen, who's a Christian, right? His name was Africanus.
Oh, Africanus.
Listening to him talk,
It's
it
painful.
sounds like
I know,
listening
it's
to my
hard.
tweaker buddies. Like, respect, but they just make stuff up. You see people on the street that are tweaking, they just make stuff up, but none of them parlay it into a career.
I don't know anything about that. But just so everybody caught that, and we'll let it go to the end of this this particular section here. But just so everybody caught that, Ammon's source for this is a Greek writer from the 3rd century. I believe someone can correct me. Actually, Stephen, I'm counting on you to be my editor for this stream. So please correct me where I'm wrong. I believe Julius Africanus was writing in the 3rd century CE, and he had an exchange, a correspondence with the Christian apologist Origen. So, but this is Ammon's source for this claim. Proceed. Thank you.
Yeah.
He's the only other one. He's been dead a long time.
You know what? I missed the reference. I could have said, "Shall I proceed?" and you would have followed up with, "Yes, indeed." That's a good 90s hip hop reference. If anybody in the chat catches it, you'll win 1 internet.
He said that a portion, right, of the Septuagint at least there's no way it's a Hebrew.
Do you know what portion?
It was several books. Yeah, Daniel. He uses examples from Daniel and from Genesis.
All right, there we go.
Okay.
If you can bring up the slide presentation, we'll get right to this. So Ammon made a couple of claims there. It's important for us to make sure we're accurate about these claims. He said that Julius Africanus actually pointed out, and in his correspondences with Origen, that there were several books of the Old Testament that appeared to have been written in Greek, and he named 2 of them. He said Daniel and Genesis. So let's look, shall we, at what Julius Africanus actually said here, what he was actually writing. Hold on, sorry, I have to move my. Damn it! I don't want a new tab. Stop it. All right.
I know that I.
Shoot.
Ah.
There we go. All right. Okay.
Okay.
So this is
before you do that, this is
Yep.
just, since we're talking about dumb claims. Without the Greek, no one would know the Bible because Hebrew was dead. Wrong.
No.
Wrong.
That is, yes, that is wrong.
Wrong.
When we talk about Hebrew as a dead language, in the shadow of the destruction of Herod's temple, what we mean by that is that Hebrew, by and large, ended up being restricted. Maybe is not the best term, but it became predominantly, almost entirely, a liturgical, religious language. It continued to be spoken and read in the synagogues. The rabbis of the medieval period published the Mishnah and the Talmud, the Talmudim, in Hebrew and Aramaic. In large part, it's actually thought that that's a very good clarification, Stephen. Dormant is probably a better term for this, but it's thought that maybe the publication of the Mishnah and the Talmud in Hebrew was part of the effort to ensure that Hebrew didn't completely disappear. So no, it was something that was not spoken in the marketplace anymore. That's
Yeah, just
basically all
because
that
it's
that
not
means.
a language that you're having day-to-day conversations in doesn't mean it just ceased to exist and it's a mystery for
Yep.
all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would thank you, Simone. There's passages in the Talmudim where Persian and Palestinian rabbis are making fun of each other's pronunciation of Hebrew.
There you go. There you go.
And there would be centuries and continue to be ongoing commentaries in Hebrew, both diasporic dialects of Hebrew and Hebrew that you would have heard and written in originally. So I don't know why people think this. I guess they hear dead language and assume
It's
it just
colloquial,
disappeared
right?
off the face of the earth.
It's
Yeah,
colloquial. When people hear
'cause
something like that
Latin,
language, they have an idea of what that means.
yeah, but
it's
also
probably
Latin is also a dead language, and there are people today that can have entire conversations in Latin.
Yep. Same with ancient Greek.
So
So
yeah, that's not what we talk about dead languages. It has to do
But
a little bit more with adding
probably
new
not.
vocabulary words and developing like
Yeah.
that way, but whatever.
But
I
probably
get really
not
frustrated when I hear that.
Sumerian. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
probably
right.
not
Well,
Sumerian.
probably not Sumerian.
Yeah. Okay.
So
All
okay,
right,
let's
go
look at
ahead.
this. This is from Eusebius's Ecclesiastical History, and he's talking about the correspondence that Julius Africanus had with Origen, and this is what he says. At the time, Africanus, also the author of the books entitled Sesti or Kesti, was well known. A letter of his written to Origen is extant. He was at a loss as to whether the story of Susanna in the book of Daniel were spurious forgery. All right. We actually have, if you just click to the next one. So we actually have the correspondences themselves still. And thanks again, Stephen, for providing this to me, because I don't have access to these texts. So this is from Julius Africanus's letter to Origen, and let's look. He's got the Greek text there on the left. He's got the English text there on the right. You'll notice some words highlighted in the Greek text in red. So these are key terms that appear in the story of Susanna. This is one of the so-called apocryphal texts belonging to the Daniel corpus. I'll say a little bit more about that in a little bit. But he's making a note here about some of the plays on words there that seem to make sense in Greek. So here's what Africanus writes to Origen. When one of them claimed it was under a holm oak, he replied that the angel will saw him asunder. And you'll notice the bolded parts there. Those correspond to the red words, prinon and presin. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation there, and Stephen's going to make fun of me, and that's okay. But you can hear it, right? It was under a mastic tree, skinon. He likewise threatens him with being split apart. Skisthenai. I don't read enough Greek. Now in Greek, such wordplay works. Saw, resembling holm oak, and split, resembling mastic tree. But in Hebrew, this correspondence is entirely absent. Now look at what he says here in this final sentence. I need to move this so I can see him more clearly. Okay. Ex Hebreon de tois elesi. Yet everything contained in the Old Testament was translated from Hebrew into Greek. Stephen included a note there. This is literally from the Hebrews to the Greeks. Vishanti, you're here. Does it sound like Julius Africanus is making the claim that the story of Susanna was written in Greek and translated into Hebrew?
No, it's the opposite. And
It's
as we
the
say
opposite.
on Dapper Dinosaurs channel, this is an example of a Trojan
Trojan
where
source.
somebody claims a person or text supports their point, and when we go read the text, it says the opposite.
It says the opposite, guys.
So
Thank
this is
you.
a perfect example of a Trojan source.
Thank you, Ammon Hillman, for such a fine example of a Trojan source. All right, let's see what's on the next one here. Oh, yes. So I wanted to say something because I think it's important about the book of Daniel and about manuscripts. I continue to make this point, and it does not ever get adequately addressed. One of the reasons why, I mean, there are many reasons, many patently obvious reasons, without even delving into the manuscript situation for texts from the Hebrew Bible and from the Septuagint. But one of the reasons beyond all that we're highly confident that the texts of the Tanakh were written, all of them were written in Hebrew and then translated into Greek, is because of the manuscript situation. And I'm just focusing right now on the book of Daniel. Our oldest manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and these date between, at the very earliest, the late 3rd century, but certainly the early 2nd century, all the way through to the late 1st and early 2nd century CE. So it's about a 250 to 300 year spread, maybe 400 years, but I'm not sure about that. No, not 400 years. Sorry, maybe 300 years. I'm not sure about that. But here's the point, guys. These are our earliest copies of biblical manuscripts. Of biblical manuscripts, of copies of the Hebrew Bible, of the Hebrew Scriptures. We have literally hundreds of them. In addition to the copies of texts of the Bible in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls are also loaded with quotations from biblical texts in Hebrew. In addition to those, the Dead Sea Scrolls are loaded with paraphrased material and what we identify as parabiblical material closely related to the text of the Hebrew Bible. In addition to those, the Dead Sea Scrolls are loaded with Aramaic translations of biblical texts, Aramaic texts also featuring biblical stories and biblical figures, which are clearly based on Hebrew texts of the Bible. But let's talk about Daniel for a minute. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, there are 8 individual manuscript copies of the book of Daniel. What you see on the screen in front of you is 4Q112. This is the oldest, or one of the 2 oldest copies of the book of Daniel in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's marvelous. This manuscript measures about 12 centimeters tall. What you have arranged in front of you are 2 fragments that comprise 2 full columns of, well, not full columns, but they represent 3 columns of text. 4 columns of text. Look at that. I have it numbered right at the top there, and I got this wrong. Whoops. Column 2, 3, 4, and 5 of this small manuscript. This is text from Daniel chapter 10 through Daniel chapter 11, and I have good reason to believe that this entire manuscript probably also included Daniel chapter 12. This is significant because it is a Hebrew manuscript of one of the Hebrew visions of Daniel that appears at the end of the book. Interestingly enough, this manuscript comprised only this vision from the book of Daniel. I think this is really exciting and kind of intriguing because this is strong evidence for just the developmental composition of the book of Daniel. As you are well aware, the first half of the book of Daniel is written in Aramaic. The second half is written in Hebrew. Scholars have long speculated that the 2 halves of the book of Daniel were not originally part of the same book, that these developed separately, that the Aramaic tales in the first half probably developed first, and then the Hebrew visions were added on at a later point in time. Here in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we actually have quite a bit of evidence, manuscript evidence, that supports this idea. This is one of the manuscripts that does so. So this is a Hebrew manuscript of the book of Daniel. It dates to, I would say, round about 80 BCE. Very importantly, you will notice that, as I said, this is a Hebrew manuscript. We are confident that this is a text that was written in Hebrew. The reason why I bring the manuscripts up more generally is because while we have lots and lots of Hebrew manuscripts of biblical texts stretching all the way back to the 2nd century BCE, maybe the 3rd century BCE, and into the 1st and the 2nd century CE, all we have are tiny, tiny, tiny little scrappy fragments of any Greek copies of the Bible from the same period. Like, there is a serious paucity of manuscripts, Greek manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible. If I can, I'm just gonna maybe I'll just read a little bit. This is
before you do that, I have a very important kitten update.
Oh my god. Fuck. Sorry, I just spilled my pop. Oh well. But that was, look at that. It's so adorable. I spilled my pop. Jeez. You guys. And I dropped the book. At least I didn't spill the pop on my book. That would have been much worse. Okay, so I'm just gonna read a little bit from this one. There's an article by Leonard Greenspoon in this volume, all about the Greek manuscripts from Qumran, the manuscripts written in Greek that were discovered in the Qumran scrolls. The title of his article is "The Dead Sea Scrolls in the Greek Bible," and I will just read his introduction here, just to give people a taste of what's going on. Most people, even some scholars, assume that all of the Dead Sea Scrolls were found in the same general location and are written in the same language, Hebrew, or to a lesser extent, Aramaic. In fact, several important biblical manuscripts discovered in the environs from the site of Qumran itself, and another highly significant text from Nachal Hever to the south. Although a number of these Greek manuscripts is very small in comparison to those written in Hebrew, they raise an interesting question. Who wrote them? Who read them? How were they used? What do they say about bi or multilingualism at Qumran in particular, and throughout Palestine in general? To speak of these as biblical manuscripts in this context identifies them in some way with the Septuagint. In general, the Septuagint, or LXX, refers to Greek translations or revisions of Old Testament books originally that were composed in Hebrew material. But in addition, the term encompasses some original Greek material. It is useful to designate the original translation of each book or group of books as the Old Greek, and to consider that there was considerable scribal and revisional activity separating these autographs from the great uncial manuscripts of the 4th and the 5th century CE that provide us with our earliest witnesses to the complete Old Testament. The Greek biblical manuscripts from the Dead Sea, which were copied quite early in the period from autograph to uncial, are of great importance in allowing scholars to reconstruct some key moments in the textual history of at least some parts of the Septuagint then. In summary, then, the presence of these Greek manuscripts, though few in number, raises extremely interesting questions concerning the use of Greek language in Palestine and the textual history of the Septuagint. So there are a handful, 7 or 8 manuscripts of the Bible written in Greek just at Qumran. But importantly, this is like a fraction of material that we have compared to what we have for the actual Hebrew Bible. We actually have quite a bit of manuscript attestation for the Hebrew Bible, stretching all the way back into the 2nd century BCE. Let's look at a couple more pictures here, Vish. What's next? So in addition, speaking here just of the book of Daniel, we also have some fantastic other things, exciting other things in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Something like this, the Prayer of Nabonidus, 4Q 242, dates to about the mid-1st century BCE, but is really cool because this is an Aramaic text, and this Aramaic text very closely resembles a story that appears in Daniel chapter 4. And scholars tend to be largely agreed that something like this, maybe even this particular story itself preserved on this manuscript, is like source material for Daniel chapter 4, one of the Aramaic stories, which is pretty exciting. What's next? This is, what is that? That's 4Q 246. This is another manuscript. There are several manuscripts in the Dead Sea Scrolls that contain additional stories about Daniel. Think about that. There's a whole cluster of literature at Qumran at the time that the book of Daniel is being composed, being developed in the 2nd century BCE and beyond. We have all sorts of other stories, texts, tales written in Aramaic about Daniel, featuring Daniel, stuff that does not appear in the book of Daniel. This is all really important because what it suggests to us is that there was this broad literary heritage for a figure like Daniel, and only some of that ended up being codified in what we now know as the book of Daniel. So that's all pretty exciting, and I think that all works rather cleanly to show that the book of Daniel, certainly no other parts of the Hebrew Bible definitely were originally composed in Greek. I'll say one more thing. Julius Africanus. So we have good reason to think that I'll just say I'll back up here. Sorry. There's several Greek additions to the book of Daniel. Stories like Bel and the Dragon, or Susanna, or the Song of the Three Youths, which actually appears right entrenched, stuck in the middle of the book of Daniel in chapter 3 there. So this is all, part of this literary cluster of Daniel material, but it all survives in Greek. We don't really know if it was written in Aramaic, if these texts were written in Aramaic or Hebrew, or actually were composed in Greek. I think there's plenty of good evidence to suggest that they probably were, but importantly, this is not something that we know emphatically. But I did want to mention one other manuscript, and I don't have a picture of this one, so you can probably put the slideshow down for now, and then we'll continue with the video after I'm done this. But there is a manuscript, 4Q551, discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that has been actually designated 4Q Daniel Susanna. And the reason it was designated that is because the editor thought maybe this was a text that might be closely related, an Aramaic text that might be closely related to the story of Susanna that appears in chapter 13 of the Greek version of Daniel. I'll just read a little bit of this. This comes from an article written by Professor Peter Flint and published in the Book of Daniel, Composition of Reception, Volume 2. He says this regarding 4Q Susanna. The story of Susanna is one of the additions to Daniel in the Apocrypha and features Daniel as a young man. J.T. Millick has proposed that 4Q551, which mentions a figure who seems to be a judge and who plays a prominent role in a court, may be an Aramaic counterpart to the story of Susanna. Were this so, it would be highly significant since beside the book of Daniel itself, all the writing found at Qumran that mentioned Daniel or contained themes also found in the biblical book were previously unknown to scholars. But again, the fragmentary state of such a scroll renders any relationship with one of the Danielic writings very tentative. And just to give you a taste, let me just pull it up here. I'll read to you some of the English translation here of what they're getting at, so you can kind of hear it. We have this text from Qumran that possibly preserves 4Q551. All right, preserves an Aramaic version of something like the story of Susanna. So here, and you'll hear this. All we have are just snippets of a few words here and there, parts of sentences. But this is what it says. On one line, we have something like the understanding, and then on the following line, an old man. And then on the next line, son of Jonathan, son of Yeshua, son of Ishmael, son of... And then on the following line, it says, all the men gather around the house and say to him, bring out... And then unfortunately, the text breaks. But then in the next line, it says something like, he will descend and will say to them, brothers, do not act wickedly. Now, if you're familiar with the story of Susanna, I think you're probably picking up on some of the potential connections between these little bits, these snippets from this particular manuscript and some of the story there. But importantly, it's super fragmentary. We don't have nearly enough. It's very, very tentative. One of my favorite pieces of evidence, it's good to see you, Chrissy, by the way. One of my favorite pieces of evidence is the usage of the chi plus verb construction that is often indicative of translation of a verb with a vav consecutive. This is a very important point. A feature within Hebrew syntax is the vav consecutive. It's used. It's basically I would say the backbone of Hebrew narrative. And one of the ways that we recognize that the Septuagint was translated from the Hebrew is because in many places, almost to the point of redundancy, the Greek text will use this construction of kai, which is the Greek word for and, plus the verb following it immediately, which is a little bit awkward in Greek with the amount that they do it. But it works. This is just functional syntax in Hebrew. And one of the things that Chris is getting at here too, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the reasons why scholars will point to the Greek editions of the book of Daniel, even though we have no Hebrew or Aramaic copies of any of these texts anywhere, one of the reasons why scholars will point to these and say that they potentially look like they were translated from Semitic originals is because this same construction also appears in a number of those texts as well. All right. Let's unless you've got anything to add.
Nope.
Let's watch some more of
Good
the
so far.
video. Okay, we're gonna move on here, guys, from Julius Africanus in the book of Daniel, and we're gonna talk. We're gonna see a little bit more about what Ammon Hillman has to say about the Septuagint.
So we had Gad Barnea on here. And
Yeah.
he was trying to explain to me, Steve,
Pause it
he
for
said
a
it was
second.
like Jewish Greek.
I just want to say that Gad Barnea is great. I really like him. He's pretty edgy. He's got some he's doing some pretty interesting things. But yeah, check him out. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I wonder if it was that Keon Greek, but he definitely said it was Koine.
Yeah.
I wonder. He doesn't say.
Koine. But at least
I'm
Danny
sorry, the
Jones
Greek
corrected him.
expert called it Keon.
No,
Greek.
no, Vish. No, that was Danny's producer, Steven. So it was.
Okay.
It was. That
Okay.
wasn't
Say that.
Roman
He just
Hillman.
said it was
Let's
Jewish
be
Greek.
fair.
Okay.
That doesn't exist.
Jewish Greek.
He should know that. It doesn't exist. There's no Jewish Greek. What is Jewish Greek? What do? You take all the Jewish...
Can we play the clips,
Do you
dude?
take Jewish authors and throw them? They have a whole separate Greek...
Does he not know that Hellenistic Judaism is a thing that existed?
Yeah, this is a problem.
Mystical?
And we're going to watch a clip of Gad Barnea's appearance on Danny Jones's podcast, and we'll probably be pausing it pretty frequently, in large part because I think it's really important for people to hear and to understand what Gad Barnea is saying, but it's really hard because Ammon, the fucking asshole, won't stop talking over him. Sorry, it's frustrating.
Okay.
But it's important for people to hear what Gad Barnea is saying. So we're gonna pause it frequently and help clarify some things. But importantly, Danny has introduced this by noting that Gad has said that the Septuagint is Jewish Greek, and it's different from like other forms of classical Greek. Ammon Hillman says that Jewish Greek doesn't exist.
All right.
Give them equality.
We're gonna love this. Let's bring him into the museum.
sake.
Let's bring him into the arena here.
Now, another really important point that a lot of scholars miss is that the Septuagint is not Greek as such. It's not Greek. It's Judeo-Greek.
For people who are new to this stuff, can you explain what the Septuagint was?
So the Septuagint is this translation of especially of the Torah, of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, into something that is Greek related.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying Greek related because it's not actual Greek. It's Hebrew Greek. It's Jewish Greek. It's Judeo Greek. It's kind of like
Yiddish. God,
Greek.
no.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that before.
Oh my God, because
Pause
it
it
doesn't
for a
exist.
So I come
Pause it for a
from
second. I hope everybody heard that. And I think, listen, I have to say, I thought the first time I saw this, I thought that Gad's decision to call this Jewish Greek was unfortunate. It's not the way I much prefer my friend Joel Carrico calls the Greek of the Septuagint translational Greek. I think that's a much clearer term than Jewish Greek, but I want people to understand what he's getting at here. There is something about the language of the Septuagint, and yes, it is Greek. It's absolutely Greek. It's Koine Greek, but it's got a flavor to it. There's a flavor to it that is unmistakably Jewish. Unmistakably Jewish.
from classical studies. And so I studied Greek classical Greek for a long time.
Oh,
And so
really?
for me, coming
bring
into
him.
and reading the Septuagint or the New Testament, which is an extension of the Septuagint in terms of its language,
No, it's not. Not
it's,
at all.
it
Totally
was
wrong.
it was almost shocking. It was almost uncomfortable.
No, he's making it up, dude. He's
for anyone
acting.
coming
Pause
from
it for a
classical
second.
Greek or from
Pause it for
Greek
a
Greek
second.
No.
to read the
Greek
Septuagint
Greek.
because it's not.
Why is this
God.
not
in
doing
some
the
cases,
thing?
it seems to be
Hang on,
wrong.
let's
see what he
God.
says.
no.
Written.
Oh damn. Oh dear.
Wow.
Whoops.
I love it
While
when
you
Chrome just decides to crash. That's really cool.
Oh, damn it.
That's really, really fun. I love that.
Yeah. Shoot.
Okay.
While
reloaded the
you're
tab. It's
restoring
fine.
that, let me just kind of pull out what Gad's getting at here. And he's right.
So frustrating.
So the Septuagint, shoot, now I can you actually maybe just back it up like
Yeah.
30-40 seconds. Yeah, run it from there. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
I come from classical studies, and so I studied
Yep.
classical Greek.
Hang on. Gotta go back.
God, no.
Crazy. I've never heard of that before.
Oh my God, because it doesn't exist.
So I come from classical studies, and so I studied classical Greek for a long time.
Oh,
And so
really?
for me,
Oh,
coming
bring
into
him.
and reading the Septuagint or the New Testament, which is an extension of the Septuagint in terms of its language.
No, it's not.
It's
at all.
Okay.
It was almost
Pause it there for a sec. All right.
Okay.
And this is an important point. Gad is telling Danny Jones that he got his Greek training in classics. So his first exposure to Greek in school, and the way he learned it was reading classical Greek text, classical Greek literature, to the point that once he actually started reading the Septuagint and the New Testament, he says it was jarring, just in terms of how different it was than what he was used to. Okay? I want everyone to be clear on that. All right, let's continue. Greek syntax with Hebrew idioms. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
shocking. It was almost uncomfortable.
No, he's making it up, dude. He's
for anyone
acting.
coming from classical Greek or
Right.
from Greek
No.
Greek
No.
to read the
Greek
Septuagint
Greek.
because it's not. In some cases, it even seems to be wrong.
Let's do
Let's hear what he
Homer,
says.
badly
baby.
written.
Right.
Some of the terms that it's using.
Why is he so creepy?
I can't answer that question or questions like that. But I'm glad you paused it, because some of the things, I know it's hard to hear and it's super annoying that Ammon is just talking over this section, so it's more difficult to make out. But Gad is making some important points here. There are terminological features that are unique to the Septuagint and the New Testament and a handful of other Hellenistic Jewish texts written in Greek, which earmark them as being pretty distinctly Jewish. And these have to do with the ways in which texts are written from the perspective, from the training, from the background of a person whose first language is a Semitic language, either Hebrew or Aramaic. It's unmistakable when you see it. And I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to say this a couple of times. I think the reason why Ammon doesn't understand this is because Ammon doesn't understand Hebrew or Aramaic. He doesn't understand the syntax of these original texts or these languages enough so to even notice the features that Gad sees when he's reading the Septuagint, or that I see when I'm reading the Septuagint. Ammon doesn't want people to hear anyone in his field giving legit counterpoints, so he creepily whispers over them. Yeah, it's super annoying. It's freaking, it's terrible. All right.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, sorry.
That
Keep
don't
going.
make sense in Greek, but
Oh,
when you
really?
know the Hebrew term
Oh,
behind
yeah?
it,
Give me a
it's an exact translation into
Give
way
me-
of
give me an example.
Very important. Very important. Pause it.
Ah!
Please, I hope everyone heard that. And it was super hard to hear, but this was really important. Gad said that there are some places in the Septuagint where the Greek text does not make good sense in Greek. But if you know the Hebrew behind it, it makes perfect sense because it looks like it's just pretty woodenly translating from the Hebrew into Greek. Does that make sense? I hope so.
Mhm.
And critically, right? Again, the reason Ammon doesn't understand this, the reason he thinks it's nonsense is because he does not know Hebrew. And if he doesn't know Hebrew, then what the fuck is he doing? Weighing in on this conversation. Seriously.
So
What the
it's
fuck?
Hebrew. It's really very much. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this know about Yiddish. So Yiddish is
Oh,
Jewish
God.
German, right?
Dude,
Jewish German is
What
Yiddish.
is that
It's the
from?
German
When's
language
it-
Hold on, let's finish
adopted
it.
by
I
the-
didn't even know that.
Yeah, so okay. So Yiddish is Jewish German.
Okay.
And it's
He's
the German. It's
behind
based
you.
on German
He's
language, but
behind
it
you.
has a lot of words in
He's
Hebrew,
got his
also
fingers
kind of sprinkled in, and that's the same thing with the Greek of the Septuagint. It's not
Not at all.
so.
Not at all.
For Ptolemy or anyone to
Mhm.
commission a work that would be written in a Jewish Greek, not in Greek.
Yeah, just so that we can explain this, there are diasporic Jewish languages like Yiddish,
Yeah.
which is based on Old High German, but it's written using Hebrew letters. But if you just listen to people speak, it sounds like they're speaking like Old High German with some Hebrew words sprinkled in. And there's another popularly known, not popularly spoken anymore, thanks freaking Nazis, Ladino, which is Judeo-Spanish, and that is medieval Spanish, again, written using Hebrew characters. So that was spoken fairly widely among the Sephardic diaspora until the Holocaust. So I don't why Ammon doesn't think that these are plausible
know
things
this.
that
I think
happen,
this is-
but
yeah.
crazy.
So before
It's
you
very
continue, like I
frustrating.
think, yeah, it is very frustrating, but I think it's it's not a bad example that Gad has thrown out here. The idea that you can get these various developments on a language within a mixed cultural context is pretty common. I mean, this is just kind of how language works. So we shouldn't be remotely surprised that Hellenistic Jewish communities who were, Semitic first language speakers developed their own flavor of Greek in their own communities. And some of this gets committed to writing. All right.
Hmm.
Let's finish it
Oh,
up.
and I think Crown House says that it might be Middle High German, because High German meaning South German.
Okay.
Obviously there's a lot more linguistic nuance in there, but anyway, let me try to get
All
through
right.
this.
Greek
Yes.
makes little sense.
Yeah, why would you create some new Jewish Greek? Why wouldn't you just
Right.
make it into real Greek?
Right. So that was probably the Greek that was spoken.
Sorry, are you decompressing from
This
having to
stupid,
watch
it hurts.
the moron? I know. So this is a good question though. I think this is an interesting question. At its height, Yiddish was the 5th biggest Germanic language in Europe, and the Holocaust happened. What could have been, eh? Interesting. But it's I think it's an interesting question that's been raised. Why would and I don't, and Gad's right. The Ptolemaic king who commissioned the Septuagint, if the story is to be believed, probably didn't ask for a text written in quote unquote Jewish Greek. or in this translational Greek, this, you know, this diasporic flavor of the language. He probably didn't ask for that, but he got that because the translators who did the work, this is what they knew. And this is, and I expect as well, this is also something they recognized as being particularly pertinent to the uses of their own communities. That's why we ended up with the text that we did. All right, let's finish this out.
Okay.
By the Jews of Alexandria.
Probably.
So it was written for them. It was not. So that's the language, that's
source,
the Greek
baby.
that they had for their own.
All right, that's good,
identity.
Steve.
God,
Give me
what a man. He's just, listen.
Why is he so slimy?
Yes,
This is the worst
and-
kayfabe.
and this is why we're only watching 5 minutes of this. But
Oh,
I think importantly, it's important for me also to say something about this. Ammon Hillman is apparently desperately looking for someone to debate him on these topics, on the origins of the Old Testament, on drug use among the early Christians, on, you know, Jesus's relationship with his disciples, on these topics, and he apparently can't find any takers. I know for a fact that's
Oh,
not
gee.
true, but I will say there is no mystery here why no one, or why very, very, very few people would even be willing to sit on the other side of the table of this guy. Like, it's extremely off-putting. I certainly don't have any interest in sitting in the same room with this gentleman. And I suspect that the vast majority of my colleagues feel very much the same.
Shall we sally forth?
We got a minute. Let's and
Okay.
most of this we'll see how
source.
much.
What is he
It's-
saying? What is
It's bullshit. That was
Can you
bullshit.
for a second try to elucidate or clarify his position and what he's saying for people that are listening to this and they're confused as right now?
His position is
Can you
flim-flam.
clarify his position?
Yeah, it's flim-flam. There is no Jewish Greek. Just like there's no Italian Greek. There's no Turkish
But why
Greek.
is he saying that the Septuagint is Jewish Greek? What how is it different?
I don't know, because he's trying to pull the authority. Right? He's trying to say you really can't read this text because it's not Greek, it's something else.
He was not making an appeal to authority at any point. Gad Barnea was
Correct.
not saying, hey, this is true because I said it or because
But-
somebody said it. That's not what he
But
was
I-
doing at any point.
You're right. And I want to say this again, and I'm talking to you, Ammon. You can't read this because you don't know Hebrew. So there's no, I mean, duh. Of course you can't understand what Gad is talking about because you don't know the language.
Thank
true.
you.
Yes.
Also, happy Darwin Day. That's one of my cousins, distant cousins. It's like eighth cousin, I think twice removed or something like that. Happy
Darwin?
Black History Month.
Wow.
He is one of my
Wild.
very distant cousins. See, these are the fun things about doing your genealogy and you're working
Yeah.
on ancestry as a hobby. And, well, in my case, like, as a side hustle, you just stumble
Very
on cool
cool.
people that you're related to. So I like to make a joke like, don't mess with my cousin,
That's
but
awesome.
it's fun.
All right.
Okay,
Let's
we're almost there.
get through it. Almost.
Oh no, it's beautiful.
But it
beautiful.
is Greek.
It's beautiful Hellenistic Greek, and I would put it at the level, compared to people like Callimachus. It's hard because he's so elevated, right? The prophets, the
There's someone elevated on that show.
Go.
Faux show.
prophetic writings that are there. Remember, prophetes is a Greek term, right? The prophets that are there,
Like,
they're
did he
reaching,
just-
I'd say a mid.
Did he just
He's
did he
not
just make
finishing
the
sentences.
no?
Like this guy, like I said, he's elevated.
But is he just venturing into an argument here that because the word prophetes is a Greek word, therefore Bible written in Greek? Is that the argument here? It kind of sounds like this is the argument he's venturing.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that English has, 20 to 30% of its words that came
Yeah.
out of a lineage
From
based
Greek.
on Greek. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that means that the Bible is
Must mean.
written in Greek.
You know what? We don't need to finish this. Let's drop
Oh,
it.
God.
Let's look. We've got a few super chats that maybe we should look at, and
The
then
kittens are getting restless. So
I-
here's one,
okay.
and it's gonna go scamper off. The other one remains in my lap. So
Okay. So importantly, guys, I have a hard limit today. I've got 1 hour because I have to get out of here. But let's look at some of these super chats, and then I'm going to get into the meat of my presentation. Okay.
okay.
Thanks, Pat. Please clarify. Susanna prayer isn't a Greek ad. Maybe not. If I
edition.
understand your question, if a Greek edition, if I'm understanding your question correctly, the point I was making is that there's possibly some evidence to suggest that it was translated from Aramaic. That's all I was suggesting. I need to pull this up so I can actually see them. That's apostate Joe Smith. Thank you very much for the $6.16 super chat. I see what you did there. Wish I could have looked at the scrolls with my peepstone. Could have been fun, but fine. You keep doing your best scholar impression of a translator. Sweet. I will do that. Thanks. All right. Who is this one? This is Craig. Why don't I see? Oh, there it is. Did you miss one?
Nope.
Nope,
Because we already addressed.
Yeah. Oh, did we? Oh, okay.
Oh,
all right.
Did I skip one? Okay, I'll come back to it.
I
Just
think,
do this first.
I think
I'll
maybe,
go
but
backwards.
okay. We'll do Craig Nelson. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Debate is impossible. He abandons any audience to norms of proper debate and discussion. Your work
Adherence.
elucidating these matters is very much appreciated. Thank you for your support, and I'm gonna keep putting heat and light where it belongs. Ligma FPV, thank you for the $6.66 super chat. A little bit more on the nose there, eh? Just showing my appreciation. The service that you provide us is absolutely priceless, and you are truly a gem for doing it. Thank you so much. It is my honor and my pleasure. Pat is back. There's a perfect modern example you can experience on your own. Learn Greek in Thessalonica or Thessaloniki, and then travel to Crete. Yep. The Cretan dialect has its own tempo and vocabulary. It can be hard to follow. Thanks for the very astute observation, Pat, and it's good to see you. All right, let's bring up the slideshow because and here's where we're going to start learning stuff. Okay? When I had my one and only exchange with Ammon Hillman, when I made a stream about this topic like a year ago, I set my focus in one place in the Hebrew Bible for a very important reason. There are multiple features of the text of the Septuagint which are dead giveaways to the fact that it was translated from a Hebrew original. We've already talked about the redundant appearance of the particle kai with the verb, which reflects the vav consecutive construction in Hebrew. There are other features like resumptive pronouns, which is a syntactical feature in Hebrew, which appears in the Greek text of the Septuagint, but is not a natural part of writing Greek. There are plenty of loan words and transliterations, literally hundreds of these, which are dead giveaways that you're dealing with a Hebrew text. The place where I set my focus, however, is on the construction within Hebrew known as the infinitive absolute. This is a verb form that appears with some frequency along with other forms of the verb. It forms a part of speech within Hebrew narrative in particular, but also through a lot of other of the other Hebrew texts. Its function is for emphasis. And I've got a few examples here to show you just as we start to give you a sense of how this works. And since Vish, you are in the process of learning Hebrew, I'm going to I'm going to get some of your help with this. So there are nearly 400 instances in the Hebrew Bible where the infinitive absolute form of the verb is followed directly by usually an imperfect form of the same verb, the same root, usually in the same stem. And this is a syntactical feature which most grammarians suggest is intended to emphasize the strength of the verbal expression. So I just went to one part of Judges chapter 11 where you have a bunch of these expressions. First of all, we have verse 25. There's actually 3 of these constructions, these Hebrew infinitive absolute constructions. So here's the text. You see it in Hebrew on the first line, and below is my translation. See here, and there's the infinitive absolute. Click the slide, Vish, and this will come up. There we go. There's 1, 2, 3 in this verse. And look at that first one. Hatov tov. So there you've got good. There you've got the infinitive absolute is the first one of these, and it's got a prefixed interrogative particle on it. So this is the Hebrew question mark, the ha. Hatov tov is followed by a perfect form of the verb. And look at the translation there. Are you any better? Are you good? Are you really good? Are you better than Balak?
Are you gooder than?
Are you gooder than? And then we've got this, the next one. Harov Rav. Did he get into not just a fight? Did he get into a massive fight? Like, was this a major conflict with Israel? Im Niklom. Im nilchom. This is an infinitive absolute followed by a nifal perfect form of the same verb. You'll notice they're both nifals. Those of you who are Hebrew readers. And what does this say? Did he start a war with them? But it's emphatic, right? Did he start a major war? Did he start a cataclysmic war with them? But I think even, like, you can see this, Vish, very clearly, because you're learning Hebrew. You can see in all of these expressions, but I expect everybody can, even if you don't read the language, you'll notice on those highlighted words that the roots of these are all the same. You can see the same letters repeating themselves in each of these words. In each of these highlighted expressions, the first word is the infinitive absolute, and the following word is the verb. And the function of this particular construction is to provide emphasis to these particular verbs. Okay, let's look at what's next. There's another one.
It's kind of like it's emphasizing the next word. It's trying to make it bigger and more important or more weighty.
So we've got one here in verse 30. And you know the story. This is the story of Jephthah and he's going to
Yeah.
war on behalf of Israel. He's going to go fight the king of Moab. And he wants victory, so he rashly makes a vow to Yahweh.
The next thing that
Jephthah,
comes out of my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is it. So
Um,
Jephthah vowed a vow, and he said, "Only if naton titain." Naton titain. So there you have the infinitive absolute from the verb natan, followed by the imperfect second masculine singular form of the verb natan, titain. Literally, giving, you will give. Or more appropriately, if you're translating this with the emphatic force that it's it requires, and I just thought I'd throw this up there. Truly dumb. Great name, by the way. It's an exclamation. Yes. These are
and
these are
not
exclamatory
necessarily an
expressions.
exclamation, but it's emphasizing it.
Yep. So I've translated this only if you give entirely the sons of Ammon into my hand. So he's making a point of emphasis on the action of the verb. And then there's another one in verse 35 here. So Jephthah goes to war. He defeats the Moabites, or sorry, I guess the Ammonites. Sorry. He defeats the Ammonites. He comes home to his house. He remembers the vow that he made that whatever comes out of his house first, he's going to offer up as a sacrifice in fulfillment of his vow to Yahweh. So it happened, we read, when he saw his one and only daughter, who opened the door of the house, that he rent his clothes, and he said, "Aha, Biti! Oh no, my daughter." I can't. Oh, is that shoot? I can't see it. I think it's.
Should have made the
I
text
think
bigger.
it's. I know. I think it's Hakara. I think it's Hakara. Hik.
Hakrea.
Hakreatini. Hakreatini. These are hifils from the verb kara. The first is the infinitive absolute. The second is a second feminine singular of the verb, speaking to his daughter, with a pronoun on the end. He says, "You have utterly ruined me." You didn't just ruin me, you ruined me completely. You have become my disaster. I opened my mouth to Yahweh, and I cannot go back on it. So
Typical.
this
This guy is blaming his daughter for a vow
Yes.
that he made.
Yeah.
Jerk.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy, that Jephthah. Gotta say.
And
All right.
no, whoever the troll is in the chat saying emphasis is exclamation. No, exclamation is when you exclaim something as in a loud or excited voice. But when you emphasize something, you aren't always exclaiming it. You can emphasize things in many ways.
All right.
But whatever. Stay mad.
Yep. But we got to move. All right. So
Yeah, we're going.
we're going to talk about what's going on, because what's really interesting is how the infinitive absolute in Hebrew is handled with great frequency by the Greek translators of this Hebrew text. And this is the sort of thing that is virtually impossible to reverse engineer if you want to posit that the Greek was original and that the Hebrew is translating from that. Then this just does not make any practical sense. So I've pulled a couple of examples here to show different ways that different Greek translators are handling this expression, because this is not, there are other ways within Greek that you provide emphasis to a verbal expression. You don't do so through the combination of an infinitive absolute plus a regular indicative verb. All right, so the first example comes from here in Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 to 17. This is the story of the garden of God, that is Eden, and the human occupants, the Adam and his woman, otherwise known as Eve or Chava. God says to Adam, from every tree of the garden, you may do what? Achol tochal. You may certainly eat. There's the infinitive absolute. But from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat it, because on the day that you eat from it, mot tamut. There's the second infinitive absolute. You will definitely die. Now look at those two combinations there, and you'll see, everyone, even non-Hebrew readers, I think you should be able to recognize the repetition of several of the letters between the two words on the first line and the two words on the second line, because they come from the same root, the same verbal root. This is the infinitive absolute appearing first, followed by the verb. And the translation, the intended meaning, the syntax of this expression is to provide emphasis. You'll notice I didn't say just you may eat, you may certainly eat. You will die? No, you will definitely die. So, what does the Greek text do here? Let's see, Vish. Okay, there's the Greek text, and there's the translation.
Oof.
Oh, that looks ugly. Oops. Apparently, my slide got messed up. I'm sorry, guys. All right, the Greek text says, you shall eat for food every tree that is in the orchard. And you'll notice that he's sticking pretty closely to his Hebrew text, but is adjusting it slightly. But of the tree for knowing good and evil, of it you shall not eat. That's it. For on the day that you eat of it, you shall die by death. Oh, sorry, I missed that. You shall not eat as food, but from the tree of knowing good and evil. I'm going to pull that up. Do not eat from it. On the day that you eat from it, you shall die by death. Now, do you see what's happening here? And yeah, Vish is gonna leave the highlights off because they got messed up. So where the first infinitive absolute construction appears, the Greek translator translated brose phage. You shall eat for food. Because he's looking at this and he's going, that kind of looks like a noun followed by a verb. So I'm going to translate it as a verb, meaning you shall eat, and a noun. Well, it sort of looks like food. You shall eat it for food. Notice it's not emphatic in this Greek translation.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't recognize the function of this expression. And we're going to get to that in a little bit here. And then in the second one, what does he say? It's a similar thing, right? Instead of saying you shall definitely die, what does he say? The actual expression is thanato apothaneste. You shall die by death, which is kind of a nonsensical statement in the first place. This is not a normal way of writing in Greek. This is totally unnecessary. You can just use the verb. He could have just said apothaneste, and that would have been enough to just say, on the day that you eat of it, you will die. That's enough. But no, he added, and notice he added it at the start.
Sorry. Oof.
It's all right.
Ugh,
He
this
added
slider.
it. He added it. he added it at the start, the noun there, thanato, and it's a dative. He put it at the beginning, just like what appears in the actual infinitive absolute in the Hebrew. But I maintain here that he does not understand what this expression means. So this is how he translates it. Meet an untimely death in Greek. Yeah, but who cares what you think, Joel? That's a nice that's a nice platitude. But let's go drinking sometime. It'll be fun.
Okay,
But you see what's going
next.
on here. And before you continue, there was one more thing that I wanted to say about this. But God damn it, Joel distracted me. Okay, let's continue. Sorry.
Okay.
All right. So
Oof.
in these first examples, before we move on to the second examples, in these first examples, just for summary, notice that the Greek translator, translating very woodenly, recognizes that there's two words there that he has to translate, doesn't quite understand how to translate them, so he treats one like a noun and puts it in the dative, and then he translates the verb. That's what he's doing. That's one way, a common way that the Greek translator handles these expressions. This next one appears in Genesis 18, verse 10. So, and this is Abraham, or sorry, this is Yahweh. This is a story of Yahweh coming to visit Abraham and Sarah, and telling Sarah and Abraham that they're going to have a son in their old age. And this is what God says. He says, Shov ashuv. I will definitely come. You can count on me to come to you during the season next year.
Is there
Excuse me.
a reason you didn't render that as return?
Nope. I probably should have, but you're right.
I would
I
have,
probably
but
should have said return.
yeah.
So, and Sarah, your woman, shall have a son. So there is the infinitive absolute. Notice this isn't just I will return to you or I will come to you during the next season, but yeah, return. This is you can count on me to return. I am definitely coming back. I think that's probably why I had in my mind I'm definitely coming back, something like that. And Sarah, your woman, will have a son. So look at how the Septuagint translator handles this one. He says, "Epanastraphon exo. I will come to you when I return." So
That's clunky.
That's really clunky. Yes. He's struggling with this. He recognizes these two words there. He sees that they're verbs, at least. He translates the first one as a participle. And I suspect he translates it as a participle because that infinitive absolute shov does look quite a bit like the participle in Hebrew. So he probably thinks this is a participle. He doesn't recognize it as what it is, which is an infinitive absolute. He says, I will come to you when I return, which is kind of silly, during the season next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. So, again, the Greek translator doesn't understand the function, right, of this particular expression. He recognizes that these are verbs, at least. Remember, the last translator thought that the first one must be a noun, but here he's actually recognizing that these are verbs, at least, but now has tried to make some sort of idiomatic sense of the expression as best as he can understand it. He's trying to sort this out. He's trying to figure this out, what's happening here. And I want you to think about this. If this text was written in Greek, if any of these texts were written in Greek, How does this happen in reverse? How does the Greek writer, in this case, introduce a clunky expression like this? I will come to you when I return. And the Hebrew translator then go, oh, I'm just going to use the infinitive absolute, turn it into an emphatic, bada bing, bada boom. Makes perfect sense.
No, because I mean, if these texts were natively Greek, the Greek writer wouldn't have written it that way.
He wouldn't have written it that way. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. There's one more example here, and this is from Exodus chapter 2.
Okay.
Okay. Exodus chapter 2:19. So this is, what is this? This is the this is the story. Moses has just killed the
Wow,
Egyptian
your
taskmaster.
slides got really
He's-
messed up there.
What happened?
Thanks. Nothing. Your highlighted
Okay.
text kept getting a little messed
Oh,
up in the slide.
did it? Oh, damn it. Oh, wow. Okay. So Moses has just killed, he's murdered an Egyptian taskmaster. He's fled for his life from Pharaoh. He's ended up in the land of Midian. He's encountered pretty ladies at the well and does what men do when they encounter pretty ladies at the well. They're impressed by Moses, and they run back and they tell their father about how impressed they are. And they said, employing the fairly rare second feminine plural imperfect form of the verb. And if you don't know, the reason why it's rare is because in the Hebrew Bible, women do not have a lot to say. But here they do. And they said, an Egyptian man rescued us from the shepherds, Dalodala. He drew of the water. He even drew for us and watered the flock. All right, there, the infinitive absolute, you'll notice, looks basically identical to the finite verb there. There's just a slight change in the vocalization. Dalo, dala. What does the Greek translator do with this? And he said, an Egyptian man rescued us from the shepherds. Boy, that did get messed up, didn't it? I'm going to pull up my my notes here so I can read this properly. So he says, an Egyptian man rescued us from the shepherds. And then it just says, intlesen. And he drew for us.
Just
And
average
watered our flock.
drawing. Nothing special.
Right. Now, I think
Yeah.
here's what I think is happening in this particular example. And bear in mind, at the time that the translator is translating his Hebrew text, he's working from an unpointed Hebrew text. So there's no vowel points in this. There's no indications of vocalization, probably, right? Vowel letters or materas, lectionis, or anything like this in the text. There's probably not anything like that in the text. So I suspect, I don't know this is my thought. I suspect he looks at this expression, vagam dalo dala, but he doesn't have any of the markings on it. It just the two verbal forms look identical to one another. I think it's possible that he suspects this is a tautography. A tautography is an instance when a scribe will repeat a letter or will repeat a word, or he'll repeat a phrase because his eye skips when he's, getting some more ink on his quill. And I think the Greek translator probably suspects that this is an error. So he's just going to translate the verb once. He doesn't recognize that this is an emphatic expression. And this comes out in his translation. An Egyptian man rescued us from the shepherds and drew for us and watered our flocks. All right. I hope that is clear. To summarize, the Hebrew infinitive absolute is an emphatic expression of the verbal action. It's used almost 400 times in the Hebrew Bible. Every single time that the Septuagint translator encounters it. Now, I believe I'm probably, if I remember correctly, Joel actually Joel actually corrected me on this. I think he said that there are some places where they actually translate it correctly. If you're still in the chat, Joel, you can confirm that for me. But the vast majority of instances where the Septuagint encounters a Hebrew infinitive absolute, they look like that. They become super clunky. The translator looks at the infinitive absolute itself and thinks it must be a noun, or he thinks it's a participle, or he thinks it's some sort of strange error or feature of verbal expression. And the outcome of this is an incredibly inelegant Greek text. This is not a feature of the Greek language. So when the translators of this text are encountering these expressions, they're flummoxed as to how to do it properly. Joel just says it's often clunky in many translations. Yes, very
And
clunky.
I know that, like,
All right.
I probably shouldn't give this person attention, but I really wish I had $1 for every person who's like, there aren't any vowels in Hebrew. Like, yes, there are. It's like running into a freaking philosophy class on the first day. I'm
Very
going,
true.
what if the colors I see aren't the same colors you see? Whoop. Like, gee, it's not like people have never discussed that before. Congratulations.
Yep. All right. I've got some summarizing thoughts here on this, and then I've got a little bit more here about loan words, and we will hit the rest of the super chats if we have any. If you have any questions, make sure you get those in, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, but so I think the important takeaway here is this. These are but a few examples of hundreds of instances where the Septuagint makes changes to the text because of the infinitive absolute. Now, my theory here, the reason why I think he doesn't understand this verbal expression is because I think that, you know, the scholars are mixed on this, but I am of the opinion that by the time of the Second Temple period, like the mid to late Second Temple period, by the time of, you know, the 3rd century moving forward, when these texts are being translated into Greek, the infinitive absolute is falling out of use within the Hebrew language. And there is some evidence to suggest this. The distribution in the first place in the Hebrew Bible actually appears more heavily weighted to older texts. There's almost 400 occurrences of this expression in the Hebrew Bible. However, importantly, there are no occurrences in the books of Obadiah, Haggai, Malachi, Ecclesiastes, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah. There's only 1 or 2 in Joel, Song of Songs, Esther, and Chronicles. These are all texts that are late. And in these late texts, they almost never use this expression. But in addition to that, there's evidence from Qumran that also suggests that the infinitive absolute with the verb as an expression of emphasis is a grammatical feature that is falling out of use. At Qumran, there are about 35 infinitive absolutes. Now, let's talk about the ratios here a little bit. Vish has a slide up on the screen. This is from a chart that was helpfully provided to me by my friend Stephen over at Cross Bible. This is from his video on the history of the languages and lexicons, the biblical languages and lexicography. You should go check it out. It's an excellent video. But he's crunched some numbers here. Here you can see that there are 432,982 individual words in the Hebrew Bible. This count also includes Aramaic words, so it's not accurate. It's likely smaller than that. There's another source that says there are 300,000 words in the Hebrew Bible. You'll notice, importantly, that in the non-biblical Dead Sea Scrolls, there's 85,507. So definitely a lot less material in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But think about this ratio. There are nearly 400 of these infinitive absolute plus verb expressions in the Hebrew Bible. There's only 36 in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it gets even worse than that. 10 of those are in texts that are actually quoting the Bible. So 10 of those appear in texts where it's included in the biblical text that is being quoted. So we can't count those. There's an additional 9 or 10 where it appears that the infinitive absolute has taken on a slightly different function. It appears quite often with another form of the verb called the infinitive construct, and together they're functioning sort of like an adjective in a regular clause. So that's a totally different thing now that's going on with the same expression from these older Hebrew texts. In the other 15 or so there's an additional 15 or so instances where it appears. That's in a lot of these texts. These are places where they are paraphrases of individual texts. Of the 15, 9 actually appear in the Temple Scroll. And the Temple Scroll is a text that actually rewrites substantial portions of the book of Deuteronomy. So the point I want to emphasize here is that in the evidence from Qumran, in the evidence from the Hebrew Bible, it seems to be that by the Hellenistic period, maybe even by the Persian period, this infinitive absolute plus the verb as a means of communicating emphasis is an expression that has passed out of usage or has become pretty rare but among Hebrew speakers and writers. Now, think of what that means when we also recognize that the Septuagint was translated in the 3rd century BCE. Like, it's no wonder the translators didn't know what to do with this expression, because by this time, it's become archaic. It's passed out of common usage. We see this reflected in the corpus of the Dead Sea Scrolls, our best corpus of Hebrew manuscripts from the same period of time in which the Greek texts of the Septuagint were actually translated. How's that, Vish? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just to conclude this, and I'm going to say a few things about loanwords. So these are but a few examples of the hundreds of instances where the Septuagint makes changes to the text because of the infinitive absolute. The variety in treatments, the often awkward resulting Greek expression, and the near universal failure of the translators to correctly render this ancient syntactical feature is an, see what I'm doing here? It's an emphatic expression that rather clearly demonstrates the direction of translation of these texts. Guys, Ammon. It was written in Hebrew, and it was later translated into Greek. That's it. But before we finish up, I want to look at... You're live. Oh, geez. Look, I'm finishing up here in like 20 minutes, Lawrence. Just keep your pants on, dude. We're almost done. One other thing I wanted to say just quickly, because I think it's so cool, and this is something that came out when Joel did his excellent presentation We simulcast this on my channel and his channel and Zach Miller's channel, which your pastor didn't tell you. Joel gave a phenomenal presentation on why we know that the Septuagint is a translation of the Hebrew text. He didn't spend enough time on the infinitive absolute, which is why I'm doing this, but you know, he did everything else. So that's awesome. But one of the things that he did in his presentation is he showed he clipped a page from an article written by Emmanuel Tove about the relationship between the Septuagint and the Hebrew Bible. For those who don't know, Emmanuel Tove actually wrote his PhD dissertation at the Hebrew University on the Septuagint translation of Jeremiah. And he's developed, as a result of his PhD dissertation, an invaluable resource. And it's what's it called? I'm gonna get this messed up, but it's basically a word list that shows every single correspondence between every single Greek and Hebrew word in the entire Hebrew Bible and the Septuagint. It's pretty phenomenal. Joel, you probably know what it is. Type in the chat what it is so that I can let the nice people know. But on one of the pages that he showed from this article, he had clear loan words from Hebrew that appear in the Greek Bible. And look at some of these. And these are listed. You've got the Hebrew, the translation, from left to right. You've got the text, the Hebrew text, the translation, the Greek text, and the Greek translation. So the Hebrew word there in Genesis 22:13. And lots of these are hapax legomena, which means they're rare words that appear only once in the Hebrew text.
One time.
And I mean, we're still kind of guessing as to the meaning of a lot of these, which is why I have question marks on some of them. So Genesis chapter 22, verse 13, this is the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. So this is where the ram is caught in the thicket. It's the basbak in the thicket. You'll see there. Look how the Septuagint translator translates this. He says it's in the photu sabik. It's in the sabik plant, right? Because it's the basbak. He doesn't know what that is. You've got this word here appearing in Genesis 36:24. Hayemim probably means hot springs. What is and you don't see it there because my text got fucked up. I'm sorry. But he basically just transliterates it. It's the Yamin. He doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't recognize this as hot springs. You've got sorry, I can't read it. Helmapifton on the threshing floor. The Greek translator does some really strange things with this, and it doesn't show up in. It doesn't look nice on my slide because it got messed up. I'm sorry, but he's basically transliterating the last word there, amaphet, and he's adding a whole bunch of stuff to it because he's trying to figure out what the hell this word means, and comes up with on the front parts of amapet, whatever that is. But this is the one. This is one in 1 Samuel 6:15 that I really want to draw your attention to, which I think is a banger. And I only noticed this when Joel did his presentation, and I'm glad I picked up on it. The Hebrew word there is argos, ve'et ha'argos, the saddlebags. And this is a description of bringing the Ark of the Covenant, I believe bringing the Ark of the Covenant back to Shiloh, or is it taking away from Shiloh? I think it's coming back to Shiloh. It says that they brought the Ark and the saddlebags with it, but this is a rare word, the argos. What does the Greek translator do with that? He calls it the amaphet ergov, the amaphet ergov. It's just a transliteration, ergov. But what's wrong there, Vish? What's different? What's he messing up? Can you see it? Instead of Argos.
Look, yeah,
He's
there.
written
Why did?
Ergov.
Why is the final letter different? There's a lot of stuff
Indeed.
going in there.
But look at that. The final letter, Ergov. Any thoughts? Why do you think he's writing Ergov instead of Argos?
Do you think that's a word that he wanted to make sound like something he knew already in Greek?
No, actually. I think and I think this is just an on the nose indicator that he's translating from a Hebrew manuscript. Because if you've seen any Second Temple, Hasmonean, Herodian Hebrew text, you will know that the last letter there is in Argos. What's the last letter is a what, Vish?
Zion.
It's a Zion. In Hebrew manuscripts of the Second Temple period, particularly Hasmonean, Herodian manuscripts, the Zion looks almost identical to a Vav. So I think he's reading this as one would Argov with a Vav instead of a Zion. And as a result, he's just transliterating that Ergov. Because, of course he is. But that's cool. Like, that's the sort, these are the sort of earmarks that we have in the text that show us pretty clearly. It's a translation, people. It's a Greek translation of a Hebrew original. All right. That's it for the presentation. That's it for the stream because I got to get out of here. Vish also has to get out of here because she's got Hebrew tonight. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Got Hebrew in a couple of hours. I think we got a couple of
In
super
45
chats.
minutes. No, in 1 hour,
You got
actually.
a little bit.
1 hour.
1 hour. There you go. Yep. Okay. I got a couple of super chats left. Let's look and see what those are. Oh,
that
thank
was
you.
a sticker of a black kitty cat.
Oh,
It doesn't show up for some reason in StreamYard.
Oh dear. All right. My goodness. Chuckarama 451. Thank you so much for the very generous super chat. It's all great to me, but that was helpful. Thanks. And I hope, like, I do this and I go deep because I think it's exciting. I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence either, because I honestly think that even if you can't read the languages, you can at least pick up on some of the stuff that's actually going on. And that's what I'm seeking to do as well, is to try and demystify a lot of this and make it accessible and make it at least halfway understandable to people so they can actually go, yeah, you know, that makes sense. Yeah. Even though I can't read those words on the screen, I understand the basic points that are being made. So I hope you're getting that much. Prixie Purple, thanks again for thank you for the $2. How do we know how to correctly translate the IA? The IA. What is the IA? Do you know what the IA
I
is?
suspect they're referring to the Tetragrammaton, maybe?
Is that it, Prixie Purple? If you're still here and you're in the chat, can you provide some clarification to that? That'd be helpful. Joel, it doesn't help for you, Joel, just to repeat it.
Oh, infinitive absolute. Thanks.
Oh, the infinitive absolute. Okay. What can you put the question back on the screen? Sorry, that was dumb. How do we know how to correctly translate the infinitive absolute? It's a good question. And the reason for that is just because the universal usage of it in these expressions always works. I mean, I guess there is a chance that we've got this wrong, but based on how these expressions appear to be functioning in these texts, and I confess that I did not actually go and take a look and see what's happening with infinitive absolutes in the Mishnah or the Talmud, but I suspect that we see the same sort of thing there as in the Second Temple literature.
Also,
But
it didn't fall out of use. It's just something that's part of Hebrew syntax. So the Greek translators of the
did-
Septuagint not understanding the function of that particular part of Hebrew syntax gives away the fact that it was originally written in Hebrew. Because if Greek wants to
But-
emphasize something, it uses a different
but what
syntactical
Prixie
method.
what Prixie is, I think what Prixie is getting at here is that if the infinitive absolute is something that's falling out of use in Hebrew by the Hellenistic period, then how do we know how it originally functioned? I'm pretty sure that's how do we know that that we should be translating this as an emphatic expression if it had already fallen out of use by the time these texts
I
were written,
really
right?
wish people understood that just because something changes in a language doesn't mean all the previous versions of that language just vaporize into nothingness.
Yeah.
And the people who understand these traditions and continue to read them don't just disappear into the ether of the universe. Like,
we have to like what Vish is getting at here is that we have literally like centuries and centuries of Jewish readers of the Hebrew texts, all the way from the Second Temple period into the modern day. And even though this is an expression that had become archaic and fallen out of common usage, through the tradition of just reading this stuff literally for centuries, these are the sorts of things that tend to be retained. I'm not sure how to more clearly. What does Simone say here?
there's
There was
intensive,
also intensive
really exacting grammatical work done, particularly with the Ganim. So
Yeah,
again,
that's
there's continuity of thought and continuity of language and tradition and all these other things, because surprisingly, Jews didn't just disappear at any point in history. We have continued, despite multiple attempts to the contrary, to exist.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
exactly. Well, so that's it. That's all I wanted to say today. Thank you everyone for coming out. Just want to look at this one. We found out it was an emphatic expression partly by how it was used in the Hebrew text. The context of the text of when it was used helps understand the meaning. Yeah. Especially when it's universal, right?
Yeah.
Nearly 400 places and seems to function the same way every time. But thanks everyone for coming out. I know, Vish, you had a poll on your channel.
Oh yeah, I've already got my notes going, so we're good.
Nice. So you're making a video, aren't you? Or doing a stream, or you're
Yeah.
doing something?
It'll be hopefully like a series of short videos. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
Everyone, look out for that. Subscribe to Vish.
it's partly because I keep seeing a lot of folks who are moderators on just various channels not being able to recognize like blatant anti-Semitism, and I'm just like, okay, I think maybe we just need to fill in the gaps here and just give them a little bit of background information, so when people think they're being clever and use coded phrases and dog whistles, that they don't just get away with it. So, it's helping people out.
It's a problem. It's a problem, guys. So yes, subscribe to Vish. Watch her stuff. Watch her upcoming video.
Bulg's like, Vish has a channel. Like, yeah, there's just not a lot on it. There's a lot of factors in going into me not having a lot yet. Right now, it's a couple of Doctor Strange comic reviews and some mirrored streams on anti-Semitism and our trip to the SBL conference. So, yeah.
Oh, I meant
Yeah,
to grab that.
Triceratops is saying, help us so we
Alright.
don't have to do all the whistle catching. Yeah, for real.
That's right. That's right. Also, I have the proper wish list actually linked in the video description. So please,
Oh, you do? Okay,
everyone
cool.
go- yeah,
Cool,
I do. So everyone go buy everything on the wish list. I mean it. Go do it. If you can afford it. What's that? Oh yeah. So tomorrow's Thursday. It's Kitty Got to Breed tomorrow
Hebrew Day.
night. I'm excited. It's Hebrew
Woohoo!
Day. Josh and I are going to continue reading the story of Balaam. And I believe we're starting in
Nice.
Numbers chapter 23. We're moving on from Numbers chapter 22 to Numbers 23. Super fun. Join us tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock Pacific for an hour of Hebrew reading. But I think that's it. Thanks so much for coming out, everyone. Thank you for your ongoing support. And we'll see you later.